Hello everyone, my name is Muir and this is X4 Foundations, and then we are going to be going over large weapons today. This is the X4 Ultimate Weapons Guide version 6.10. It will be updated to 6.20 presumably in the near future once 6.20 comes out. It was made by Kajar, who has compiled all of this information together for you. So if you come here and you really like all these numbers and you like the graphs, please do give him some sort of award or a thumbs up. Just let him know that you appreciate the work he is doing. So let's go ahead and get into the capital weapons. What we have here is all these capital weapons. They tend to have their own little shtick that they kind of do. So let's go ahead and talk about them. Behemoths, they use magazines for their main guns. They call them clips, but they probably are clips in this case. But basically, each clip means that it can fire a certain number of times before it has to go through a reload, which for the Behemoth is, I think, a second or two. Yeah, it's like 2 seconds. And then it can fire 3 more shots. If you only fire 2, the reload animation will not happen. You still need to fire that third one off. You can't press R or something and, automate and just manually reload it. Alright, then we have the Phoenix. This one does not use magazines whatsoever. It just fires until it runs out of ammunition. Same thing with the Odyssean. It does not use magazines because it's kind of the destroyer version of a bolt-action rifle. It fires, it does a crap ton of damage, and then they have to load another round in there, and then it fires again. It does a whole lot of upfront burst damage. After that, we have the Rattlesnake. Now, the Rattlesnake is interesting because it comes with 4 main batteries, so it has 4 guns on it. And that actually, despite the fact that each one of them are kind of only ever so slightly better than the base game, there's a reason for that. They collectively do a lot more damage, the most of all the main batteries, except for the battleships themselves. We won't be covering the battleships in this video. If you want the long and short of those, the Earl King's cannon is like a slightly better version of a destroyer gun, but the Asgard's beam is basically just the hand of God. It pretty much just destroys everything that it touches. It does an outrageous amount of damage to things. Anyway, back to the destroyer weapons. So we have the Terran guns. These guys, they have the highest damage output. They also fire 18 times. This is 18 little shots, not 18 big shots. And collectively, this means that they do a fairly high amount of damage. And the fact that there are so many shots gives them the ability to still threaten fighters, medium ships, instead of just destroyers and extra large ships. Okay, so what about the Borons? Well, they have a charge up before you can fire the beam, and the beam, as usual, does more damage to shields than it does to hull. It also slows down the enemy, and it does damage per tick, however long that is. And so per tick, it slows down the enemy, and if a single beam is on an enemy capital ship or extra large ship, large or extra large, it will slow the ship down to about 20% its total speed. So just keep that in mind. Alright, so strengths, weaknesses. Behemoth is your midliner. It can do pretty much everything. If you really don't know what you want to use it for, if you really don't know what kind of destroyer you want to use, and you're able to use any of the base game ones, you can't go wrong with Behemoth. Phoenixes, these guys do the least amount of damage, but they don't use magazines, they don't reload, and they deal steady damage per shot. And what this means is that you will be able to just steadily be dealing damage instead of needing to wait for your magazine to reload to do your 3 round shots, your 3 shots, and then wait again. So what that means is that when you have more concentrated fire, the enemy will die sooner with more concentrated fire, or more specifically, you will know you won't waste additional shots killing an enemy. The other fact is that not using magazines actually increases the efficiency. As I said previously, with the Behemoth, with the Rattlesnake, and with the Terran ships, because they use magazines or clips in this regard, they have a certain number of shots, and you have to fire all the shots out of the magazine before you can reload it, to my understanding. So there will be times when you won't get that 3-round, or you won't get those 3 shots with the behemoth. You only get 1 because the other ship died in 2. Something along those lines. Okay, so Odysseus, this does a lot of damage up front. It fires like 3 times before it overheats. So just keep that in mind. This is like 15 or 20 shots. Yeah, it's down here. This is like 20 shots to overheat. The Phoenix is 22, and the Odysseus, it fires 5 times, and then the guns are shot for a while. So just keep that in mind. That is definitely an aspect of it. These guys do this like almost 30,000 damage in 5 shots. So they're doing about 6,000 damage a hit, which will add up very quickly when you have both of them shooting. If you have 5 destroyers, they're all focus firing the same target. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of damage very quickly adding up. If you were to say have 5 behemoths up against 5 Odysseus's, you may see that a behemoth dies before an Odysseus, and that gives them just enough of an edge to really win the fight. Okay, so rattlesnakes. There are 4 guns instead of just 2. The rattlesnake, they fire 5-round burst. Well, their magazine is 5 shots. It isn't really a burst. But you have 5 shots before they have to reload the magazine, and you have 5 more shots. The thing to keep in mind about the rattlesnake and the Terran as well is that they have a range of 6,000 kilometers, whereas the Behemoth, Phoenix, and Odysseus, as well as the Boron main gun, they all have a range of over 10,000. So, what this really gets at is the idea that the rattlesnake and the Terrans, they have to get much closer to be able to do damage. But when they can do damage, they do a lot. Alright, so the Terrans, their main guns, they have 3 on their destroyer, and each one of those guns will fire 18 little shots. Those 18 little shots will add up in damage quite quickly. Because it's 18 little shots, they can hit fighters, medium ships, in addition to just destroyers and extra large ships. So it's probably your most well-rounded and capable of doing everything kind of weapon, except taking on stations, because it's 6,000 range. And then finally, the Borons down here, they deal more damage to shields than they do to hulls, and they will slow an enemy ship down to about 80% of its total... Well, they will slow a ship down to about 20% of its total speed. 2 rays, that's the Boron capital, will basically stop an enemy capital from moving at all. So if you have 2 or 3 rays, as long as you stay out of their range and you're shooting them with your main guns, they're not going anywhere. Alright, so for the simplified stuff, all this visually, this is what the numbers seem to boil down to. So as you can see, the behemoths, they're your all-rounder, they kind of just do everything okay. The Odysseus, this is your high burst damage. It does a little bit less damage, but its gimmick can actually, would potentially help it edge out over the Behemoth if, say, it's Odysseus versus Behemoth. The Phoenix as well, not having to reload a magazine with a clip, definitely could help it edge out over, say, a Behemoth or a Xenon, but generally it's continual spray of fire, if you will. That mainly just helps with efficiency and also not having to worry about magazines or clips or anything like that. You will always be able to keep firing. As soon as you press the fire button, you'll always be able to fire as long as you have heat left. Whereas over here, you might have only fired twice, and now as soon as you fire once, you have to reload the magazines. Alright, then we have the Rattlesnake. So this guy, 5-round bursts, range of only around 6,000 kilometers, and it does the highest burst damage of any of the mainline weapons in the game for destroyers. Has the highest sustained damage as well. These are like full-sized, like capital, like shots. So you may struggle to hit corvettes, or you may struggle to hit small and medium ships with these, but they will do a lot of damage to enemy destroyers and enemy captains. You have the Terrans. These guys fire a lot of little shots, so they'll be able to hit medium ships, small ships, and destroyers with relative ease, and because there are so many shots, they tend to do pretty well. As you can see, they also have pretty high burst damage and sustained damage as well. Again, 6,000 range on these two down here, so you do need to pretty much just get right up in someone's face to be able to hurt them with these ships. Whereas if you, say, if you are flying a Boron ship, you will not only be able to damage these guys far before they can get to you, but you will also be able to potentially stop them from even getting to you altogether and bringing these guns and this DPS to bear against you. But alright guys, that's Destroyer main guns. As I said previously, the super capitals, the battleships, those basically boil down to Earl King is slightly better than the Destroyer weapons, and the Asgard beam does, oh man, so much more damage than these guys for the same amount of time. But alright, that is going to do it for us guys. This is the graph. Hope this has been useful to you, and I will catch you later. Bye everyone.